We're in Charm City, headed in to meet Levine, owner of A Friendly Bread. Come on in, let's meet him. My name is April Williams, business owner, creator, and host of Entrepreneurious. Join me as I travel around the DMV to find out what it really takes to launch and grow a small business. Meet Levine, the creative and culinary genius who transitioned from a nonprofit and social justice career to owning a brand now sold in the fresh market and giant food. Levine, thank you so much for having us here in your space at Baltimore Made, Charm City, Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
I am so happy. You know, since we had our first conversation a couple months ago, I was very excited to meet you and come to see what you do here at A Friendly Bread. Now, you are an unlikely artisan of sourdough grilled cheeses because growing up, you were not really a big fan of bread or cheese, which is really interesting, but you transitioned from a nonprofit career to opening A Friendly Bread. How was that launch and why did you decide to do that?
I did hate bread growing up, that's true.
Interesting, okay.
My mom would send me to school with a bag of crackers and a bag of lunch meat, and I would make the sandwich right at lunchtime so nothing would get soggy.
Were they saltines?
They were Ritz.
Okay, Ritz. Okay.
And then I graduated to Melba Rounds, sesame. Mm-hmm. And I just never liked when things got soggy. I didn't like soggy things, and most bread, especially if you put it on a sandwich, it's gonna get soggy. I, through the years, dabbled in various hobbies, and bread making became a hobby because there was one evening when I was supposed to bring bread to a friend's house for this for Shabbat, for the Jewish Sabbath on Friday night, and the bakery was closed, and I quickly had to figure out how to make challah, which is the braided Jewish bread.
Love challah.
And that was the first bread that I made on my own, and I learned that when I was in charge, I could manipulate the product, I could make it hot and crispy, and then later on sourdough, which is chewy and crusty, I could be in charge of whether that bread was ultimately going to be soggy or delicious the way I like it.
And the sourdough holds up.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
Sourdough holds up. And I began experimenting with sourdough. It's a challenge to make, and so it becomes more of a hobby and not just a thing you make. It becomes an engrossing activity. And I, at the same time, was in my career of 12 years in nonprofit work and was starting to lose confidence in the ability of the nonprofit sector to make as much of a difference as I thought that I was going to be able to make. I got a little jaded with nonprofit work. And my boss at the time, who I kept bringing in my leftover experiments on Monday mornings, she finally said to me, "Stop bringing these to me for free. I want to pay you for this. It's really good bread."
You said your boss?
My boss at my nonprofit, yes.
That's a great boss.
She ultimately allowed me to kick myself out of the nest. She didn't fire me. But at a certain point, she let me go down to 4 days a week so I could start my weekend baking business mix on Friday instead of Saturday. And ultimately, she even helped me at some of my farmers market stands. She and her daughter.
That's incredible to have a boss that can see something in you and to actually give you the space to be able to live out your dream, because here you are operating in several stores in the DMV, and that takes a very special person. So talk to me about transitioning from the farmers market to where you are now, being in Giant and other stores in the area.
I had an early mentor when I first started the artisan bread sales, who had been around the restaurant scene for a couple decades in Baltimore. And he told me that he had tried to bring artisan bread to Baltimore 20 years ago. And he said there just wasn't enough of a market for it. And people complain that there's not a lot of good bread in Baltimore. And he said, don't trick yourself into thinking that that's because no one has figured out how to make good bread. It's because the market hasn't been big enough for it. So he advised me to always keep my eye out for some kind of alternative business model, alternative type of product. And I kept that really close to me. My customers who would buy my bread kept coming to my farmer's market stand or emailing me back from my email blasts to the customer list. They would show me pictures of the gourmet grilled cheeses that they were making with my own sourdough product. And they were very impressive and very inventive.
Wait, so at that time, at the farmer's market, you were just selling the bread,
yes,
not the grilled cheese? Okay.
That's right. Yes, we were a bread company solely for the first 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And we had a contest actually here at Be More Kitchen because it's an incubator space with a lot of member businesses. It was a Battle of the Brands contest. So any business that was a member here could participate, and it was a community event. People came and tasted and voted. And my dish that I presented was 3 varieties of grilled cheese made from our bread. And I won that contest. That was great.
So how did you decide grilled cheese and you're not a bread or a cheese person? Or you weren't? How did you get to that?
Well, before I left the nonprofit world, I spent a little bit of time in a part-time MBA program and learned about listening to your customers. And also as a community organizer, I learned about listening to what people are saying they need, want, and have passion for. And so even if I did not end up liking it, I was following where the energy was. Now, I do like my own grilled cheese.
I bet you do.
I think, well, I'll add another thing to the list of things I don't like, which is butter. So I didn't like the kind of grilled cheese you would have as a kid. Butter on Wonder Bread with American cheese. But if you give me fancy bread and it's olive oil and it's cheese that's like kind of high quality and chewy and stringy as opposed to American cheese,
right.
You're coming more into the tolerable area for me. And so I do like my own product.
That sounds great. So no mayo on that, because some people. No,
I also hate mayo.
Okay.
Now
we were friends before, but okay. Yes. Okay.
You opened up this bottle of.
That's a can of worms.
Yeah, exactly. I also, just in response to the question about mayo and grilled cheese, I know that a lot of people like that, but one thing I've learned in creating a packaged product is that when you're bringing something to market, the fewest amount of turnoffs that you can add to your product, the better. That's why you always see the first flavor of whatever thing comes out is the olive oil and sea salt, or is the plain, classic. Not that the company didn't have the inventiveness to think of the crazy off-the-wall flavor, but they need something that the average customer can't have any objections to.
That's good.
And is more likely to try because you didn't add something that's going to turn them off. And so the cleanest set of ingredients is the way that we've approached this so that we have access to the most people. And so knowing that mayonnaise, just as an example, is going to be more of a turnoff to some people than just olive oil, right? Nobody objects to olive oil.
Right.
And what I mean about olive oil is we do a spritz of olive oil on each side of our grilled cheese sandwich. That gives us an easier entry into the grocery store for customers. And it was that that event where we presented the grilled cheese. I had made a few pre-made products so that I could just cook them off at the event, and then I had a few extra that I hadn't cooked, and we had some friends over later, 2 days later, pulled them out of the fridge and just started either heating them up or eating them cold. And that was actually the first time I realized that in addition to making fresh bread, we could be a packaged products company. And that actually was the light bulb, the friends grabbing it out of the fridge, plus my customers making the delicious grilled cheese. It was putting those two together.
That's so good. And it's so amazing to me hearing your story, hearing your journey, that it is indeed a journey of many pivots that, you may have a friend over and they may say, hey, I really like raisin bread. And you're like, hey, what about raisin bread and Havarti? It's amazing how the people that are surrounding you, that are in your circle, can help you get to where you are now. And that is so very very important in the growth of a company like A Friendly Bread. So I'm very curious to find out though, because you make it look good, right? I've seen your clips and your website looks great. It's all together, but we know that there are some highs and some lows and some struggles that you have to face when not only you're launching, but when you're scaling up. What were some of the bumps, in the road that you hit in one or two, and how did you kind of overcome them?
I'll be honest, we're in the midst of those bumps now and all the time. And so there, we haven't gotten to the whatever other side there might be.
Sure.
I sure hope there is the other side.
There is, yeah.
Top of my mind right now, I would say currently, our customer discovery. We've had a really good run of buyers in retail chains recognizing the product and taking it into the store, but it is an entirely different thing for a customer to notice it and put it in their cart, especially in the frozen section, because people don't spend a lot of time lingering in the frozen aisle. So having customers find our product is one of the biggest challenges, and what that leads to is then that you don't move through your sales as quickly as possible. So then what that leads to is that in these early stages, there's always a struggle to stay financed, to have enough money to keep going, because even if you get into lots and lots of stores, the sales numbers, they don't start to creep up until people really notice you, and that takes time.
It does.
It takes effort, but really time. I think right now we are actually fine in terms of our production process and economics. To be honest, I anticipated a larger volume of sales, and so I built our production capacity and efficiency when I was planning for that. And then when the sales don't come through, you're like,
smart.
oh, I have this great system. I would like to use it.
Right.
So right now, production is actually not really that much of a problem for us. It's actually keeping the production team busy sometimes, because you try to anticipate what levels of staffing and what level of productivity you need, and then you are often wrong.
Because this is not an exact science, right? And so I have seen your progression just over this short period of time, and have done a bit of research on your company, and I am extremely ecstatic for not only your present but also your future, which is why we're here to help impact your present and your future, right? To help shed light on what you all are doing here at A Friendly Bread. Now, one of the things that I saw on your website is that you have 4 pillars of commitments on your website, and I was so grateful to see those. Why were those commitments so important to you? Tell me a little bit about them.
Thanks for asking about that. When I left the nonprofit sector, I was a little over it in terms of stating a mission and being really out front about a mission, because I felt like often missions were performative.
Something you had to have.
Yeah. However, what I realized is that even without the performativity of having a mission, there are still non-negotiables for me personally in terms of how I ethically comport myself.
That's good.
And how I treat people. And what I learned over time was that when you broadcast and tell people about those different commitments, and you do it in a humble way, you're providing people the opportunity to get to know you better, as opposed to hitting people over the head with it, or as opposed to making false promises. And if you don't tell them, you're denying them the opportunity to know where you stand. And sometimes, because there's so much self-aggrandizing, if you don't say those things that you do, people assume you don't do them. So if you don't have on your website, like I do, that our current starting wage is $22 an hour, and we have a commitment to be at $25 an hour by the end of 2023. If I don't say that, people assume that I'm paying $12 an hour. And if I don't say that we're an LGBT certified business, people will not have any idea that their pronouns will be respected when they come here.
Ah, right. That's good.
And my other commitments have to do with sustainability. So, we have a good deal of bread scraps when we slice up the bread for our sandwiches, and we have a partnership with a local farm, and all the cows and goats and chickens eat it.
Nice. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I forgot the fourth commitment.
So did I. Is it
I'm very committed to it.
Is it manufacturing?
It?
Listen, come
April.
on now. Boom, I do my research.
Yes, we're committed to local manufacturing.
That's right.
That I guess that was so obvious because it's what we're here doing.
Yes.
And so what that means is that we are committed to keeping the money here, which leads us to be able to pay good wages, right? We don't have we don't have a middleman who's doing the manufacturing who then has to take a profit for themselves.
Right.
And if I were paying a middleman to do the manufacturing, I don't have control of the way they're treating their workers. And so it's a way to not outsource responsibility.
Wow. Well, I don't know who that was for, but that was good, right? I really like how you encapsulated that, and I could tell your shift from the nonprofit that really it came with you in the thoughts behind putting those commitments together. So right behind us here, on the other side of this glass door, are the people that are working and putting your tasty products together. And spoiler, I love grilled cheese in any format. And I don't know if people remember government cheese, but the one in the block, right? We used to even do those, right? Being from Florida, but I love grilled cheese in all forms. So I would love to let the people see some of your products. So we're gonna do that. Just give us a second.
We sure are. Let's do this. Here you have our cinnamon raisin and brie.
Okay.
Cinnamon raisin bread is actually a sourdough in itself. It still has that chewy and crusty quality that sourdough has, but it's flavored as cinnamon raisin. And it's paired with a brie cheese and low moisture mozzarella.
Okay.
Over here is the pickled jalapeno bread with Gruyere.
Right.
We pickle the jalapeno ourselves and put it in the bread, pair it with this Gruyere and low moisture mozzarella cheese.
Sure.
Over here is the challah and Swiss. So challah is that Jewish egg bread, and we've paired it with a Swiss cheese as well as the low moisture mozzarella. The challah is the only one that's not a pure sourdough. We actually do add some commercial yeast, and that allows you to get a little more of the fluffy, sweet flavor that you might get with a normal challah.
Sure.
So it's not as chewy and crusty. It's great for kids, or just some people love challah.
I'm going to start with the raisin bread, and I'm going to try it. So look at that. That just is, and so you can see the bits of like cinnamon
That's true.
in the bread.
Yeah.
Look at that. All right, here we go. I have never tasted a grilled cheese like that. And I've had lots of grilled cheese.
Thank you.
And that is so incredible. So the thing that I really love is that you have these unique flavors and combinations. So you have one that's just kind of basic, kids, anyone who doesn't have an experimental type palate.
Yes.
And then you have the funky flavors.
That's
I'm
right.
going to tell you one thing, that is delicious.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us here. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that this interview is going to help so many other businesses that are looking to grow and scale like you. So thank you, Lane.
A Friendly Bread rose to the occasion and created accessible sourdough grilled cheese products and snacks that can now be found in giant grocery stores and the fresh market. Want to learn more? Find them on Instagram at A Friendly Bread or afriendlybread.com. Want to stay up on all things Entrepreneurious? Well, you can like and subscribe at Entrepreneurious Show. We'll see you next time.